late here today with a technical challenge, but we can, I'll now call this meeting to order. This is the Board of Directors regular meeting on September 17th, 2024, here in the boardroom at Desert Water Agency. For those folks who are participating virtually or would like to participate virtually, there is information on our posted agenda on how to do so. We can, just a few housekeeping matters. Everyone that's in the boardroom today, if you could mute your electronic devices so as not to disturb us during the meeting. And for those of us who participate virtually, please keep your microphones muted until and unless you're ready to speak during public comment. For discussions and questions, I will call on directors in the following roll call order. Director Gracia, Director Bloomer, Secretary Treasurer McKenna, Vice President Bowman, and President Ortega, and all votes will be conducted via roll call. And now I will lead the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Item 3 is our roll call. Ms. Baca, if you could conduct the roll call, please.
Director Gracia,
Present.
Director Bloomer,
Present.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna,
Present.
Vice President Bowman,
Here.
and President Ortega.
Present.
All present.
Thank you. Item 4 is public comment on items that are not on today's agenda. So this would be the opportunity now for members of the public to comment on any item that's not listed on the agenda but is within the jurisdiction of our agency. Speakers are requested to keep their comments to no more than 3 minutes, and as provided in the Brown Act, the board is prohibited from acting on items that are not listed on today's agenda. Ms. Baca, have we received any public comment?
No comments have been received.
Okay. Are there any members of the public or in the either in the audience or in on attending virtually who'd like to speak at this time? Seeing none, we can move to item 5, public comments on items listed on today's agenda. Again, members of the public may also comment on items listed on the agenda, but are not subject of a public hearing. Again, speakers are requested to keep their comments to no more than 3 minutes. Have we received any comments for items on the agenda? We have
No
not.
comments have been received.
And if many members of the public would like to speak at this time? Seeing none, we can move to item 6, which is our consent calendar. Today we have 4 items on the consent calendar. These are considered to be routine and will be acted upon by one motion of the board without discussion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a board member requests a specific item to be discussed and or removed from the calendar for separate action. Any of the board members have an item on today's consent calendar that they would like to speak of or discuss separately? No, then we can move to, I'll look for a motion to accept the consent calendar as presented.
I move item 6, consent calendar as presented.
Thank you. I look for a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. So I have a first from Director Gracia, a second from Director Bloomer. And could we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Gracia,
Aye.
Director Bloomer,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna,
Aye.
Vice President Bowman,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 7A is request board authorization to award contract for 2024 winter pipeline replacement project. That's item 7A, and there you are. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, President Ortega and members of the board. I'm here this morning to request board authorization to award contract for constructing the 2024 winter replacement pipelines project. The 23-24 capital improvement budget includes capital project 221063 for a replacement pipeline project with 2 project areas in the city of Palm Springs. Those project areas can be seen on attachment number 1 in your packet there. Area 1 is in Division 1 and Area 2 is in Division 4. The project consists of the installation of just shy of 12,000 feet of 8-inch ductile iron pipe and is estimated to be completed within 150 days of construction commencement. August 20th of this year, Desert Water Agency received 4 bids for the project. You can see the breakdown below, and a further detail is included also in your packet is attachment 2. Borden Excavating, Inc. Submitted the low bid of $4,222,777, and that was approximately 11.5% lower than the second lowest bid. Borden Excavating, Inc. is considered a capable contractor with a current Class A contractor's license. The engineer's estimate for the project of $3,650,000 is $572,777 under the lowest bid. The difference between the engineer's estimate and the low bid was due mostly to 3 bid items that were significantly more expensive than anticipated, namely the cost of pipe installation, the cost of asphalt, and the cost of concrete pavement. The cost of pipeline was approximately 15% or $200,000 more. The cost of asphalt was approximately 30% or $175,000 more since just the last pipeline was bid in December of 23. The third item of the concrete pavement was approximately 3 times more expensive than anticipated. So if you take the lump sum of those more expensive costs of approximately $500,000, you add that to the engineer's estimate, the estimate's now back within about 2% of the low bid. So those 3 items were significant increases that were unanticipated, again, in a relatively short period of time. The budget amount for capital project 221063 is $4,440,000. With the contract costs, agency labor, materials, and overhead, and third-party inspection costs, the total estimated cost for the project is $4.9 million, which is approximately $460,000 higher than the agency's budget. A current replacement pipeline project is nearing completion. It's anticipated this project will be under budget by over $500,000. These excess funds may be transferred to capital project 221063 to offset the higher contract costs. Staff anticipates requesting board authorization to transfer the available funds at a future board meeting in conjunction with the acceptance of that pipeline project. Legal review will be performed at the time of contract execution. Fiscal impact, the 23-24 capital improvement budget includes capital project 221063 for a replacement pipeline project with a budget of $4,440,000. The total cost for the project is estimated to be $4.9 million, again, $460,000 higher than the agency's budget. Funds from capital project 211011 are anticipated to be transferred to the capital project 221063 at completion to fill that funding gap. Director Sands has reviewed the report. With that, staff recommends the board award the contract for the 2024 winter pipeline replacement project to Borden Excavating, Inc. in the amount of $4,222,777. And I will take any questions you may have.
Thank you. Director Gracia, do you have any questions?
Could you tell us what the scope of work is for a third-party inspection?
Yeah, so third-party inspection on this project will consist of geotechnical engineering. They come out and they take samples of the compacted backfill going into the trench to make sure it's meeting compaction standards so there's no settlement in the future. They are also checking pavement to make sure that that's meeting our specifications. And we hire a third-party inspection firm to do that.
And on top of the contractor. Okay, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Director Bloomer?
Question/comment. Borden's done a lot of projects for us.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Borden is completing the other projects referred
Right,
to
yeah.
currently.
And they
Yes.
came in under budget, so that's a good sign.
Anything else? Oh, thank you. Secretary Treasurer McKenna?
Just a quick question. In the 4.9 million overall estimate, is there any contingency in there for things we haven't expected?
There's no contingency in there.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Vice President Bowman?
Director Bloomer already asked the question, or made the statement about have we worked with these people before? So thank you.
Okay. And I have no further questions or comments, so I guess we can move to looking for a motion to accept staff's recommendation.
I move we adopt item 7A, the 2004 winter pipeline replacement program as presented.
Thank you. I'll look for a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. So a first from Director Gracia and a second from Director Bloomer. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Gracia,
Aye.
Director Bloomer,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna,
Aye.
Vice President Bowman,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. All right, we can move to 7B, which is request authorization for board compensation for attendance at Mission Springs Water District Reclamation Facility ribbon cutting event. General Manager Johnson.
Thank you, President Ortega and members of the board. As you all know, Mission Springs will be holding their ribbon cutting event for the Nancy Wright Regional Water Reclamation Facility on Friday, September 27th. And this item was mentioned by Secretary Treasurer McKenna back on September 3rd. On September 12th, the executive committee met and requested that we bring this to the full board and to discuss and to approve putting this item on our compensatory list that is currently not on that list. And our budget includes board attendance at meetings, so it does not affect our budget. But if the board desires to attend, staff recommends the board of directors approve and authorize compensation for attendance at the Mission Springs Water District September 27th ribbon cutting ceremony in service of the board. And with that, I'll put it back to the board.
Thank you. Any questions or comments, starting with Director Gracia?
No questions.
Okay, Director Bloomer.
No questions.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna?
None for me.
No. Vice President Bowman?
None from me.
Okay, and I have none. So,
yeah,
go ahead, please.
I won't be able to attend, and I'm happy to see they're moving along well with this. I would move that we adopt item 7B, board compensation for attendance at Mission Springs Water District Nancy Wright facility. I want to mention that I coined the name Nancy Wright Regional Reclamation Facility, and when I was on the board there, I made the motion to build this plant, and I'm happy to see that they're able to bring it online. I guess they're going to have it online by the time you guys get there, so it'll be interesting.
Okay. All right, I have a motion. Could I look for a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. So first from Director Gracia, a second from Director Bloomer. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Gracia,
Aye.
Director Bloomer,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna,
Aye.
Vice President Bowman,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. 7A is a request authorization for board compensation for participation at DWA strategic planning meetings. Again, General Manager Johnson.
Thank you, President Ortega. This is another item that we would ask that the board discuss regarding putting on our compensation list. And this is in regards to our strategic plan. If you recall, back on August 20th, the board authorized the agency to execute our agreement with the Center for Organization Effectiveness, and that is for our strategic planning services. On September 12th, the executive committee met, and a part of our strategic plan is to first develop an ad hoc committee, which the executive committee did create. Chair Ortega appointed Director Bloomer to serve as chair on that ad hoc committee, and then Secretary Treasurer McKenna as vice chair. Part of the strategic plan process will be each board member will individually meet with the consultant to discuss their thoughts on what our plan should be. And for that, we are requesting that that meeting be a compensable item for the board, since it's in the service of the board. And staff is recommending that the board of directors approve and authorize compensation for those board directors participating in the meetings as in service to the board. And be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Director Grasha, do you have any questions, comments?
I have no questions, thanks.
Okay. Director Bloomer.
No questions or comments,
Okay.
thank you.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna.
None for me.
All right. Vice President Bowman.
Just a comment. I think this is an awesome approach to something very critical for the district, and I commend the staff for seeking input and for our ad hoc committee going forth with it.
Great, thank you. And I'll just follow along with that. This is something I've wanted to see for almost 2 years now. I'm glad that we're finally getting close to that point. I already have my appointment, virtual appointment starting next week, I think, regarding getting input from board members. And so I am very happy to see this potentially move forward. So we will, well, not potentially moving forward, it will move forward. But as with regard to compensation for attendance during these meetings, I'll look for a motion from the board.
I move item 7C, authorization for board compensation to participate in this strategic planning meetings.
Okay, thank you. I'll look for a second.
I'll second.
Right. So we have a first from Director Grasha, a second from Director Bloomer, and may we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Grasha,
Aye.
Director Bloomer,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna,
Aye.
Vice President Bowman,
Aye.
and President Ortega.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. The next item is a discussion item. We'll start with General Manager Johnson.
Thank you, President Ortega. So with my scheduled retirement set for July 3rd of next year, the board had to make a decision on what path to move forward with my replacement. And we have met several times and regarding this, and the board has elected to offer the position to Finance Director Esther Sines. And so Government Code Section 54953 provides that prior to taking final action, the legislative body shall orally report a summary of a recommendation for a final action on the salary schedules, or compensation pay in the form of fringe benefits of a local agency executive during an open meeting in which the final action is to be taken. So this discussion item today will satisfy the government code. And with that, I would like to hand it back over to President Ortega, who will provide an oral summary of the proposed contract. And then later today during closed session, the board shall review the contract and hopefully make a final decision with that. So at this time, I'll hand it over to President Ortega.
Thank you. So the following is the oral summary of the proposed contract for Ms. Signs that the Board of Directors will be reviewing during closed session today. The effective date is July 4th, 2025, which is an interesting day to start. A contract term is for 4 years. The base salary is $315,000 annually. Base salary adjustment: in no event shall the general manager base salary be less than 5% more than the highest paid agency employee. If in the event an agency employee's total salary is more than 5% less than the general manager's base salary, the general manager's base salary shall be adjusted to at least 5% more than the agency's highest paid employee's total salary. Cost of living adjustment: base salary shall be adjusted annually by the same percentage adjustment provided to all agency employees for changes in the cost of living, if any. Merit increases may be granted as the Board of Directors deem appropriate. Incentive award: general manager shall be eligible for a discretionary annual incentive award not to exceed 10% of her total annual base salary based on the results of her annual performance evaluation. Vacation: general manager shall receive and use vacation benefits under the same terms and conditions applicable to agency's full-time employees generally. Attendance bonus plan: general manager shall accrue and paid ABP benefits under the same terms and conditions applicable to agency's full-time employees generally. Other leave: general manager shall be provided with holiday leave and pay, floating holiday leave and pay, bereavement leave and pay, jury duty leave and pay, and other leave and pay under the same terms and conditions applicable to agency's full-time employees generally. CalPERS retirement: the agency agrees to provide for participation in and pay all employer contributions for general manager in the California Public Employees Retirement System. The agency acknowledges that the general manager is enrolled in the CalPERS under the same terms as other miscellaneous employees of the agency who are considered classic members of CalPERS. The agency's current contract with CalPERS for classic members provides for a retirement benefit formula of 2.5% at age 55, with the highest single-year compensation determining the benefit. Retiree health insurance: general manager shall be provided with medical, dental, and vision insurance coverage upon retirement in the same coverage amounts provided to agency employees hired after May 1st, 2007. Such coverage shall extend to general manager's dependents who are eligible during the time of coverage. Deferred compensation plan: the agency shall make matching contributions to the general manager's deferred compensation plan. The agency shall make a monthly contribution to the general manager's deferred compensation plan according to the same terms and conditions for agency full-time employees hired after May 1st, 2007, for the purpose of providing a financial supplement for health insurance costs following retirement from the agency. The agency shall be responsible for all expenses associated with the deferred compensation account during the term of this agreement, including but not limited to the administrative service fees and commissions. Disability, health, and life insurance: the agency shall keep in force and make required premium payments for medical, dental, and vision insurance benefits covering general manager and her eligible dependents. Term life insurance in the amount equal to one-time general manager's annual base salary in the same manner as provided to all full-time agency employees generally. Short-term and long-term disability insurance in the same manner as provided to all full-time agency employees generally. Membership dues, subscriptions, and license fees: to the extent the agency's approved annual budget designates sufficient funds for the purposes identified in this section, the agency agrees to pay for the professional dues and subscriptions necessary for the general manager's continued and full participation in national, state, regional, and local associations and organizations necessary or desirable for her continued professional participation, growth, and advancement, and for the good of the agency. Professional development: registration fees, and travel subsistence expenses of the general manager for professional and official travel, meetings, short courses, seminars, and occasions adequate to continue the professional development of the general manager and to adequately pursue necessary and/or appropriate official business and other functions for the agency. Upon the prior approval of the Board of Directors, the agency also agrees to pay for relation tuition, fees, and travel and subsistence expenses of the general manager for education, degree programs, and institutes that are necessary for her professional development and the good of the agency. Vehicle. General manager shall have the option of being assigned the use of an agency vehicle for agency business and discretionary personal use, or provided a monthly private vehicle allowance of $1,000 per month for utilizing her private vehicle for business-related expenses. And that concludes the oral summary for item 8. I don't know if we need to open this to the director's comments at this time, that we will save those for closed session,
Yes.
generally, yeah?
Well, I'd like to comment.
If you would like to make general comments, you can.
Yeah, general
and-
comments, sure.
Yes, yeah. I just want to say I'm very happy to see that, we filled that vacancy. It was a concern of how we would do that. I think Esther is eminently suitable to perform that role, and I look forward to working with her.
Okay. Director Gracia, did you have anything additional?
Just a question about process. Is it necessary to meet in closed session? Could the board, if they decided, dispense with that and vote on this in open session during the main body of the meeting? Could we do it now?
We haven't read it, though, really.
I would,
We'll leave that to our council.
yeah, Mr. Riddell.
Yeah, the board, if it elected to forego the discussion in closed session, the board could do that. Nothing requires you to go into closed session.
Any other thoughts on that?
I say we do it now.
I concur.
No? Okay.
I move that we accept the general manager's contract as read by the president of the board, and direct the president of the board and secretary to sign that document.
Okay, I guess that's the motion. Can I have a second?
Oh, I'll second.
All right, thank you. So I have a first from Director Gracia and a second from Director Bloomer. May we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Gracia,
Aye.
Director Bloomer,
Aye.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna,
Aye.
Vice President Bowman,
Proudly, yes.
and President Ortega.
Aye,
Motion passes.
thank you. Great. Welcome. Well, not welcome, you're already here, but you get what I mean. All right, so we can look forward to seeing information out in the public later today, I assume? Yes, thank you. Right now, it's right here. All right. Item 9 is our general manager's report. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, President Ortega and members of the board. For the first item on the report, this is a, okay.
It's okay, I think we're almost there.
All right.
We're almost there. We can
All right.
continue.
I think we're having some technical issues. Okay. The first item on the general manager's report is it's an update on our water deliveries to Whitewater and Mission Creek. So as of September 9th, approximately 203,500 acre-feet of water has been delivered to the Coachella Valley. Just over 200,000 has been delivered to Whitewater. Around 150,000 is the State Water Project water, and 50,000 is the QSA water. And and then in July, we had just over 3,000 acre-feet of water delivered to the Mission Creek Basin. So if you recall, our settlement agreement between Mission Springs, DWA, and CVWD requires, it specifies that deliveries should be proportional to the water pumped from the basins, which currently is around a 92%, 8%, 92% of whitewater, 8% on the Mission Creek Basin. And we had been out of balance. However, at the end of August, the delivery balance has now been met, and therefore, what we are planning to do is now when that water is delivered, that is state water project water, we can send, based on this proportion this year, would be 92% would be to Whitewater and 8% would be to the Mission Creek Basin. We have started water deliveries in the Mission Creek Basin. It's flowing at around 60 CFS, and that started on September 10th. And I believe almost all the ponds are full again. I think we're just the last ponds have not, the water has not reached those ponds, but we're anticipating those ponds to receive water maybe by the end of this week. At that point, we'll most likely need to cut back the rate so that we can match the percolation rate. 60 CFS might be a little too much for the ponds to handle. We definitely do not want to overflow the ponds. So, based on discussing with Met, they do anticipate delivering water through the end of September and possibly through the end of October, which will continue to have that 92%, 8% delivery. So we're anticipating total water deliveries anywhere from 266,000 to 360,000 of total water delivered. And for the Mission Creek facility, it will hopefully be between 8 and 15,000 acre feet, which is a good year for deliveries there. And with that, I will go to my next item, which is our system leak data. 14 leaks. That's great to see. That very minimal. And one of the streets is on our 2024 replacement plan that was just approved. Then we have our human resource meetings and activities. Ms. Hopping, is there anything that you would just want to highlight, or?
We had a supervisor training meeting on communication styles that was really well received by the staff that attended. We were able to have 24 people attend in 2 separate sessions, so that was really nice. So we're working on scheduling our next supervisor training for next quarter. And just, there's a Valley-wide Employment Expo on Thursday, and I'll be representing us there as well. And Emmanuel Sarpong, our operations manager, will be joining me. So we have a couple positions out there, so hopefully we'll get some good attendance.
Yeah, that's exciting. Then for the general manager's meeting activities, just some of the highlights. We had our Public Affairs and Conservation Committee meeting on September 4th. We had an executive committee meeting on the 12th. On the 13th was the All Valley Mayor and Tribal Luncheon, which I believe Director Grosh and Director McKenna were able to attend that as well. And speaking of the supervisor training, I did participate in that training on the 11th. And with that, that concludes my report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you. Director Grasha, do you have any questions for our general manager?
Just to highlight the recharge report on Mission Creek. You know, the, the way you have it written in there that it is now balanced or will be balanced, this agency was created to do that, and on this day, it took that many years to do it, but it got done, and I think we want to remember that it was a lot of people and a lot of generations of employees that made that possible. And there was a time when the news media would cover every one of these meetings as if it were as important as it was, as it is. That's not being done now. This passes almost without mention. But through the 1960s and 70s, this would have been a headline. And so I just want to acknowledge that you know, things that are now taken for granted at one time, the seriousness. This issue actually goes back, the roots of this go back to as long as the roots of this agency, the need to bring in water to be able to support our community and its industry and commerce. And in fact, 1857, when Judge McCallum came to town and took control of what was then the Palm City Water Company. They ran out of water, and for 10 years, everybody left. There was nothing here because there was no groundwater to support the community. So this is a big deal, and I'm honored to be sitting on this board to be able to make those comments. Thanks.
Thank you. Director Bloomer.
No comments or questions, thanks.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna?
I have a couple. Coachella Valley Water District also pumps water out of the Mission Creek subbasin. They have 4 wells north of Dillon in the Atlantic Avenue area. How do we balance, or how do they balance recharging the aquifer with what they take out?
Well, when we say the balance, what we're referring to is when we had that 2004 settlement agreement,
Right.
there was in that agreement, it states that water shall be delivered at a proportional rate based on pumping out of that basin versus what's pumped out of whitewater basins, to include the Mission Springs or Mission Springs Water District wells or any private pumpers and CVWD wells. And then then they compare that to the Western Whitewater Basin. And back in 2004, I think it was somewhere around a 93% Whitewater, 7% Mission Creek Basin difference. It's now in about 92 and then 8%. And so the production is increasing over in the Mission Creek side of things. When we were delivering water, when we started delivering water, we over-delivered to that basin, which means we delivered out of that proportion. Instead of delivering at a 93 and a 7%, it was more of maybe around a 10% to a 90%. And we got out of balance on that end of things. And we had 20 years to rectify that, which in 2024, we had to ensure that we corrected that so that at the end of 2024, when you look at the total deliveries of State Water Project water, the sums would match the ratio that should have been delivered to those basins. And that's when I said that we have now caught ourselves. We were able to adjust the deliveries to where we are now at that correct proportional delivery percentages.
So the 92-8 split includes what Coachella Valley is doing. All right, I got it. Thanks, appreciate that.
Yeah, and deliveries are both DWA and CVWD water.
Right, that was the point I missed. I appreciate
Correct.
that.
Okay.
I have another question on another topic, and that is, it's sometimes you don't notice what you don't notice, but when you get that leak report, there's hardly ever a leak in Cathedral City. Why is that?
I would say that the main reason why is in Cathedral City, there's two main areas of Cathedral City that we serve. There's the Cove, and then there's the Dream Home areas. Maybe around 10, 12 years ago, the city of Cathedral City had some sewer districts. And a part of that work, we decided to put pipelines in. So for Cathedral City, for the Dream Homes, they had a sewer assessment district. So the citizens in that area decided to pay for the sewer. And at that time, we joined in on that work and replaced all of the water mains. We did the same thing in the Cove. The Cove had a separate assessment district, and we replaced most of those streets with water pipelines at the same time. It was paid, we had our own, it wasn't part of the assessment district, it was paid through our replacement pipeline project. And so we did that for several years. So for those years, we were not replacing water mains in the Palm Springs area. We were focusing on the Dream Homes and the Cove area. That's why most of the mains in Cathedral City are now fairly new mains.
That was a good piece of forward thinking there. Thanks.
Yeah.
Vice President Bowman?
No questions.
Okay, I have nothing else. So we may move to item 10, which is director's reports on meetings and events attended on behalf of the agency. If each director could list the event and the date that they attended and give us a little summary of what went on. And we'll start with Director Grasha.
Yes, Mr. President, on September 4th, I attended with you, and which is, I believe, was an all-hands-on-deck meeting. That room was full. I don't know how you could fit more people in it. A discussion of on the conservation programs that the state is engaging us in. A 24% reduction in 24 months. I don't know how we achieve that unless we fly helicopters over town telling people to put down their garden hoses and come out with their hands up. I don't know how else we're going to get there, but we're going to work on it. Ms. Lort swears she's going to get everybody in shape. On September 5th, I attended the Desert Valley Builders Association legislative meeting. And on the 9th, 10th, on September 9th and 10th, I attended the CSDA Indian Wells Conference, and I believe most of you were there. And on another meeting on the 10th was the Coachella Valley Water District board meeting. Interesting comments there were President Powell making some very positive comments about tribal negotiations between our agency, theirs, and the Agua Calientes. And another meeting on the 10th, it looks like. No, that was the, and then on the 9th, I did IT training, security training. On the 12th, another Desert Valley Builders Association meeting featured Mark Rogers with TRG Land, and he was presenting a big project that they've got planned for La Quinta. Had the opportunity to have lunch with President Powell from Coachella Valley Water District. During lunch, he indicated that he's interested in engaging this board and the district, of course, in discussions on rearranging some of the boundaries of our agency and theirs, which will raise many interesting discussions going forward, I'm sure. This would involve an adjustment to our sphere of influence in some areas and boundary changes as well to accommodate some future projects that they're looking at with Mission Springs. So it raises a lot of issues and a lot of questions, and we should all be looking forward to that. On the 13th, I attended the All Valley Mayor's Tribal Chairpersons Luncheon, and I must say, Ms. Lort, again, did a remarkably good job as the moderator. Is that right? MC? I don't know. Anyway, she was the main focus, and it was wonderful to sit and watch that happen, and everybody did a great job. All the mayors gave brief comments about things going on in the various cities, and I would say that it was definitely worth attendance. So that's it, I believe. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Director Bloomer.
Okay, I attended also the California Special Districts Association September 9th through the 12th, and we had a very interesting opening keynote speaker / concert. He was a very talented guitar player as well, so that was kept it interesting and engaging. And I think one of the themes that I saw again at this conference was also workforce development, and in talking with people from other agencies that are struggling to hire, especially at the more executive level with retirements. So everyone seems to be having those problems except for us, so that is good. And I look forward, there's also a lot of financial outbreak sessions that were great, and I look forward to everything's supposed to be recorded and available to rewatch. So I look forward to doing some of that as well. And I think that's it. Tomorrow I will be at the Palm Springs Business Expo, and that's it.
Thank you. Secretary Treasurer McKenna.
Well, I had a busy time.
Mm-hmm.
I also attended the California Special District Association on September 9th through 12th. And the first thing we did was take a tour of the Edison Devers substation, which is north of Dillon and east of Route 62. I drive past it all the time. I've never noticed it was really there. When we got inside, it was an incredible facility, very Star Trek-ish. We were in a control room that was just wall-to-wall display. I thought, this would be a great place for a Super Bowl party. But it's manned by about 19 people. It covers 50,000 square miles with 15 million residents and 800 substations. And I learned that Edison is able to switch electricity delivery from circuit to circuit when they have an outage. And that helped me a lot later in the week as I attended breakout sessions and the rest of the conference. I went to an AI breakout session. It was a little bit superficial and not very specific. I went to a values-based goal setting for the public agency, and that included discussion on situations when you find your values are not aligned with the values of the agency you're representing. And I'm in a bit of that situation right now. I'll come back to that later. I went a breakout session, when decorum and civility do not work, then what? And that was a useful discussion on what directors can and cannot do on public agencies and how to cope with a disruptive director. I went to crafting a meaningful strategic plan, knowing that was on our agenda. I didn't know it was going to be quite as intimately involved as it looks like I will be. I've already had my session with Jeanette Williams from the consultants. I thought it was really good. She's very sharp, and I'm looking forward to that. And then I went to a breakout session on microgrids. I know our assistant general manager was at that one too. He said, I knew you'd be in here. Yeah. Microgrids, a useful concept. It involves, for instance, if you had an agency headquarters with a water treatment plant and a solar array across the street from a big Edison substation, which was in turn across the street from a battery energy storage system, and along the block from, another city facility and an animal shelter. You can combine all these facilities in what they call a microgrid, and they can run independently of the main grid in the event of, a huge grid outage, as we could have after an earthquake here. So if you know anywhere like that, then start thinking about what might be possible. I think that was very useful. I actually, that meeting was sponsored by SiteLogic, and it happened that like the very next day I sat next to somebody who worked for Schneider Electric, and he told me that they do that too. So there's a lot of people out there promoting that idea, and there is grant funding available for it. He said, "Oh, you got $15 million tomorrow if you want to study that." I don't know if that's really true, but it was an interesting concept and something we should definitely be thinking about. On the 12th, I attended remotely the Mission Springs Water District meeting. They moved a few items to their September 16th meeting, but they did say that the regional wastewater treatment facility, which is a different name from what it now is. Now it's a reclamation facility.
Nancy Wright Reclamation.
Yeah. Right. It will be operational in November rather than during the ribbon cutting. And that's because they had a right-of-way issue, an easement issue with Edison, and they paid Edison $80,000 to get permission to put their sewer line across Edison easement. So Edison is in my sights again. They spent $237,000 last month with Edison, and they paid the Desert Water Agency $399,000, and thanks for that. They also paid a $90,000 settlement to an employee for what they called a CRD complaint. So there was not a lot of detail on that, but I noticed it. September 13th, went to the All Valley Desert Mayor's Luncheon, and I heard a lot of interesting things about regional cooperation. And I know we do a little bit of regional cooperation with the other water districts, but all of the mayors seem to think that you really make progress when you have regional cooperation. So that goes to the point you made about Coachella Valley. A lot of them are concerned about reliability of energy supply, resilience of energy supply, and Rancho Mirage mayor mentioned that they had spent $5 million on an electrical substation there in the IID area, and the infrastructure is old and crumbling, to be generous. So to enable development in Rancho Mirage, the city is paying for electrical substations. And I find that interesting. So on to the 16th, Mission Springs again. I said I was busy, right? They approved a power purchase agreement with a company that will install solar panels on at their pumping stations, at their well sites, and will guarantee the cost of the power to the Mission Springs district. This is different from the approach they tried before when they would actually install the systems, pay the $17 million themselves. This plan allows them to not pay for the infrastructure. They get in turn a reduction in their Edison bill, and they get a guaranteed increased rate rather than doubling it every 8 years like it has been lately. They had a discussion on the ribbon cutting, and I hope we're all going to be there. I know you can't, but hopefully. They'd also discussed their headquarters building, which City of Desert Hot Springs has now approved. The Planning Commission has approved it. And Director Meyerhoffen went on to ask what would happen to the old building. And he did that in the context of how some districts are now buying apartment buildings to house the staff in order to help recruitment. And that's a comment on our housing situation. They said that they would be opposing a City of Desert Hot Springs motion that should be on the council agenda tonight to allow a project to have a temporary TCO so the developer could pay the impact fees over a period of time. Mission Springs feels that that violates the conditions that they set on that project. The project is a PODS facility near the new Amazon facility. I have to comment, Mission Springs won a lot of awards at the CSDA, and I think it shows a change in mindset. I think there's a lot more transparency over there, and they won an award for transparency. And I congratulate them on that. So that's it for me.
Thank you. Vice President Bowman?
I too attended the CSDA from the 9th to the 11th, and Several of the workshops I went to was advanced training in California Public Records Act and how special districts can work with various partners and cities to secure revenue and improve services to our shared communities. That was a big title. Outstanding presentations. I loved the main opening speaker, as Director Bloomer referred to, and then the mid-conference speaker as well. But I have to say, apart from gaining data from these workshops, it's the interaction with other districts. I mean, we're a water district. They have a cemetery, they have recreation, they have all the different forms of special districts here in California. And I believe special districts is probably the best form of government one could have, because we are elected from the constituents to represent the constituents to a district that provides water, sewer, recreation, or cemetery. And it's delightful to be a part of it and a privilege to be there. At this particular CSDA, there is a nationwide appeal to get CSDAs from various states together to have a nationwide CSDA gathering. I had the privilege of spending a little bit of time one evening with a contingent from Florida. And they had come all the way out here to understand how CSDA works, to take it back to their region. And I was impressed because they asked me, a water guy, all about our aquifers and how it happens and where we get the water from and how do we replenish. And it was a joy to explain to them our percolation process. I also attended the executive committee on 9/12, and that was it.
Thank you. So I had two outside meetings, one that has been talked about quite a bit already. I was also at the California Special Districts Association conference last week in Indian Wells. My focus was really primarily attending events that had to do with board governance and public interaction. I did attend also the artificial intelligence breakout, if you want to call it that Secretary Treasurer McKenna attended. I found it very informative, but I didn't love the format of it. It was very freewheeling and a little bit hard to follow sometimes, at least for me. And then another item that I attended was had to do with financing capital improvements. Perhaps not the most gripping topic, but certainly a very important topic, especially as we approve nearly $5 million for pipeline replacement projects as we go year after year. So that's always a good conference, I think, for us, particularly because we focus so much on water, and now we can focus on things like public policy and governance and things that are much broader topics that apply across special districts throughout the state and actually across the country too. And then on Friday the 13th, I attended the Region 5 event. They had a very catchy name. It was Watershed Wisdom, a day of learning and exploration in the Pajaro Valley. The Pajaro Valley, for those of you who may not know your geography of California very well, is in Santa Cruz. It straddles Santa Cruz and Monterey counties. So it's in the Monterey Bay. It is a highly intensive agricultural area with the main city of Watsonville on the river, with the Pajaro River, which basically bisects the valley. And the reason that I was interested in the topic is there were primarily two sessions before we went on a tour of one of their facilities. But it has to do with flood control and farming. And these are two agencies that they're not producing water to domestic, they're not delivering domestic water. These are two agencies, is the Pajaro Valley Water Management Agency, and then there's also the Pajaro Regional Flood Management Agency. And although they don't do the same thing, they work very closely together. The Pajaro Valley Water Management Agency is celebrating its 40th year. It was started by farmers in the area because their aquifer actually goes underneath into the bay. And that's a great recipe for saltwater intrusion into the aquifer. So back in the early 80s, they realized that they needed to start thinking about how they were going to prevent that from happening. That was the reason for, that's the original reason for their creation. And what they do is they partner with the city of Watsonville's sewer treatment plant and provide tertiary treated water back to farmers for the sole purpose of being used on the farms, which from the plant you can literally see right next door. All the strawberries and artichokes and broccoli and greens and all these other things that are grown out there, and that's in order to to reduce the pumping out of the aquifer and to help mitigate that saltwater intrusion. Whereas the flood management agency has been around for quite a while. In fact, in the 1940s, the Army Corps of Engineers created a series of levees along the Pajaro River, which allowed farmers to protect because there are lots of farms right along the river, and it allowed the farmers to protect their farms. But the quality of those levees is not, would be less than, were quite subpar, as it turns out. And since 1966, there's been an appropriation in Congress to improve the levee system along the Pajaro River. And if some of you might recall, 2 years ago during our mass series of atmospheric rivers, it was quite devastating to the city of Watsonville and the city across on the Monterey side called Pajaro, where there was a lot of flooding, primarily in lower income neighborhoods, primarily for farm worker communities. So that was sort of this project of improving the levee system there has been in the works for quite a long time, but that was the final straw, I think. And so the agency really kind of went into high gear. The flood management agency went into high gear and really started to focus on how they were going to make this, how were they going to fund this project, how are they going to get it going. And what was interesting about the project to me, and the reason that caught my attention, is that there's a component of aquifer recharge in it. And that I find very fascinating, because I look at when we had these situations with atmospheric rivers going through here, and when we had Tropical Storm Hillary last year, and when we had flooding in certain areas of the valley, and then meanwhile, I can walk out my front door and I can see the Talkowitz Creek wash, at full capacity during these events, and a lot of water running through that, and thinking, how are we not able to capture some of that activity in maybe ways similar to what a project like this is. So this is a different kind of project. It's going to be a $600 million project, if not more. It's primarily funded by the federal government and the state, as well as the ratepayers. But it has what they're doing is they're pulling the levees back 100 feet on each side of the river. So that widens the space. It slows down the volume, or slows down the flow. It creates that opportunity for aquifer recharge. It creates recreational opportunities. It creates habitat. It creates a lot of benefits. Farmers are willing to give up 100 feet of their prime real estate in order to make that happen. And the reason and the way they're making that happen, and the challenge of making that happen, is that you have a valley that is shared by 2 counties and several agencies that are involved. So there's a great deal of, going back to the concept of regional cooperation, there's a great deal of regional cooperation that has to happen in order to make a project like that happen. So those were the elements that were interesting to me, the opportunity for aquifer recharge, as well as some of those other benefits. This is really a flood control program, but it has a lot of other benefits for the community, and it involves a great deal of regional cooperation. So I found it fascinating. I think it was one of the best programs that I've attended with one of these regional aqua programs in a really long time. And with that, I think we're done, so we can move to our next item, which is Director's Comments and Requests, item 11. We'll start with Director Gracia.
Yeah, just one thing, and that is, since we're going to have the ponds full at the Mission Creek Recharge Facility, this would be an extraordinarily good opportunity to get some decent quality photographs. And if you haven't got that on your list, or our crack photographers list, maybe you could do that. I know how much trouble it is to get that golden shot, but it would be worth it, absolutely, if you could. I think it'll be the first time those ponds have all ever been full. So the photographs that I've seen are all a little washed out, all a little less than, yeah. The blue water's so pretty when you catch it at just the right angle. Tell them to wait for that, right? Anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bloomer.
No comments or requests.
Secretary Treasurer McKenna.
Well, I hope you're sitting comfortably because I'm going to make a speech. August 20th, we decided to hire an outside consultant to guide us through the process of establishing a strategic plan, and I strongly favor that effort. But on September 3rd, we approved this plan in a 4-to-1 vote. And I have to say, a little part of my soul died when we did that. There's nothing strategic about this plan. We adopted it knowing we need a strategy. So why did we do it? I don't know. Maybe I should have been stronger in my criticism. It's a plan that took longer to gestate than an elephant. It was 4 years. It's already 4 years into that plan. The cost estimates are based on 2022 dollars, which we don't have anymore. We have 2024 dollars. They buy 7% less than 2022 ones. This thing scales up what we're doing now, and that's not a plan. Here's what we do now. We built a new shade structure over the parking lot, and it has no solar array on top. Why? I don't know. 24% of the new cars registered in California this year are electric, but there are no electric vehicle charging points in that parking lot. Why? I don't know. We have an employee parking lot with about 80 spaces for our employees. It has no electric charging points. Why? I don't know. So why is this a problem? That I do know. Vice President Bowman and I sit on an ad hoc technology committee, and we've been reporting to the board how very well and very thoroughly our staff is running the DWA 2.0 project, updating our technology, our county systems, and more. It's big. It's an all-encompassing project to bring us up to date. But consider for a moment, why do we have to do that big thing? We have to do it because for years, the technology has been racing ahead outside this building, but inside, it hasn't been. We carried on as we always had. The systems worked, the systems worked sort of. The water flowed, the bills went out, reports were done, all good, right? No, it's not good. So here's another quote from JFK. You know, I love these. Time and the world do not stand still. Change is the law of life, and those who look only to the present, the past or the present, are certain to miss the future. He said that in 1963. And that's what this plan does. It misses the future. Right now, with our climate situation, there are certain things we know we can't do. We cannot do what we've always done. We cannot do what we're doing now. It just does not a response. This country joined the Paris Climate Accords in 2015, aiming to keep average temperature rise on the planet to 1.5 degrees Celsius by 2050. That's 2.7 Fahrenheit. At which point we would be carbon neutral and the temperature would stabilize. And after 300 years or so, it would start to go back down. These greenhouse gases are very, very persistent. In 2016, we walked away from that treaty because we had a head of state who said, climate change is a Chinese hoax. And then he got fired, and we went back into the treaty. So what's happened since then? In the last 12 months, every single month, this planet has exceeded that 2.7 degree temperature rise. And we're not even close to 2050. The future of 2050 is here. To get the trend line back to 2.7 degrees by 2030, we would need to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by 46%. And this organization, if it has imagination and will, could actually do that. But as of now, it's not showing that imagination or concern or willingness to solve that problem. Up in this dais, we call ourselves directors. So let's do some directing. There's a tradition of collective responsibility when the board of directors makes a policy decision. And on this plan, I'm opting out. I'm going to continue to oppose it. I cannot and I will not help to implement that plan. Meet your new disruptive director. That's it.
Thank you. Vice President Bowman.
I appreciate your passion, Director McKenna, and I'm glad that you're on the ad hoc committee to look at maybe a 2.0, if we want to use that terminology, for our planning and going ahead. Other than that, I have no comments, except that Director Sines, you got a big problem that you get to solve, but I think you're the one that can do it. I think our prior GMs that I've known, Mark and Steve, you are succeeding and standing on their shoulders and going higher in the tree to pick the fruit that we need to have picked. And then you get to find a replacement for you, and that will be a big hole to fill. Congratulations.
Thank you. So I will start with my initial intended comments. They're more, they're not really big deal comments, but I just wanted to remind people in the room that I believe it was yesterday was the 10th anniversary of Sigma. And I know that courtesy of our Desert Water Agency Facebook page, I believe it was, that made that announcement. And then we also, some of us may be at the Taste of Palm Springs tomorrow evening, I believe. We've been invited to that. And of course, again, want to encourage those of us that can to be at the ribbon cutting on September 27th at 9:30 at the Nancy Wright Regional Water Reclamation Facility, as this flyer actually has it listed. And also to point out that on Saturday morning at the Westin Rancho Mirage, our general manager will be part of a panel along with the assistant general manager, Marianne Chapman, from Mission Springs Water District. And that will be on the future of a healthy desert with public utilities. It's something like that, something titled like that. Not sure, can't remember exactly. And that's being put on by the Desert Healthcare District here in the Valley. And I'll go back now to share my thoughts on Director McKenna's comments a few moments ago. Again, we have an opportunity now to create a strategic plan. It's something that I've been wanting to see for at least 2 years. I don't consider that a strategic plan. I know it upsets him that he was the lone vote to reject the plan. I think I even said afterward that this was an opportunity to bring his concerns about energy independence into that planning part of the strategic plan, and that was the place that I felt would be the appropriate place to do that. I look forward to your support in participating in that development of that strategic plan. And with that, I think we can close the meeting this time for the public portion and move into closed session. It is 9:15. I'd like to meet in the boardroom at 9:25. Thank you. One that works anyway. All right, are we ready? No, we're not ready.
Recording in progress.
Thank you. So we're back in open session, and I can say that we have no reportable action at this time. So the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.